Hello and welcome to an episode of Survive the Wild, Be Prepared. Just to recap, the reason why I'm doing these type of videos now is because of current events of what's going around and happening in the world at this moment in time. It's not a great situation. Personally, I think we are at the closest point to another global war, World War III. So yeah, it's time to take that seriously once again. Not we haven't really had to take that seriously since the Cold War, but times have changed. Things have definitely changed very recently. So it's time to start getting prepared. Anyway, today I want to talk about food storage, not so much hoarding. It kind of is hoarding in a sense, but foods to consider buying in. You don't have to buy in a massive amount all in one go, because that has a knock-on effect on supply and price. So like you can falsely inflate things by if everyone just starts rushing to the supermarkets and buying stock. Supply and demand, basic principle of business really, and certainly retail. So I'm going to go through a few things that I think are essential to start stocking up on. Whenever I go to the store, I just buy a couple of extra of these bits. I fill my cupboard upstairs, my main food store, which is upstairs. I'm now going to start with, I've got one of these boxes. I'm going to buy a bunch more. I want to get some shelving down here. This is my brilliant basement. This is just one room of my basement. I've got another one, and it's quite big. It's 14 feet by 16 feet, I believe, that way. So the type of box that you use is quite important. So this type, obviously, it's just a plastic box. The edges are, apart from this bit here, are smooth, but it sits nicely along that. Now, what you really want to do is jagger up the edge, scratch it all up, some rough sandpaper, put a bead of silicone sealant all the way around it, a reasonably thickish bead. As long as it has a good contact with this, you will let that set, by the way. So when you put the lid on, it becomes airtight and watertight, or as near as you definitely can get it. So in these boxes, I'm going to go through the three, what I consider probably the three most essential items that you want to stock up on, particularly for long-term needs. This doesn't even have to be a World War scenario. This could be a bad winter, sudden bad weather, something happens to the supply chains, whatever. But in terms of nutrition, apart from, obviously, the recommendation for a man is 2,500 calories a day, and about 2,000 for a woman. The bare minimum that you can get away with for a woman is 1,200, and for a man it's 1,500. That's without particularly expending much energy at all. That's kind of just day-to-day living. Anything less than that, then you're going to be in a deficit. Obviously, remember, this is going to depend on your size as well. So if you are a big, tall person that's quite muscular, you are going to use more calories just moving around, just generally, and breathing, and your heart pumping, your circulatory system is going to use more calories than somebody who's small. So there's a little bit of give and take in it depending on your size. Anyway, so your three main ones: rice, beans, fish. oily fish particularly, that are rich in omega-3s. The combination of these three items here have all the, or pretty much all the essential fatty acids that you need to be healthy. Plus you've got carbohydrate in these and proteins, like a more of a raw form of protein in the muscle tissue of the fish. But the amino acids that are in here help build other proteins within your body and repair and maintain, to help to maintain your immune system and your blood pressure and hormones and all those different things. So these are the main three essential items I would go for. Mackerel, fish, nuts, nuts that are rich in omega-3, things like walnuts, but mixed nuts, because they've got good oily fats in them that are fairly healthy. Eat too much of them and you'll put a bit of weight on, but given these sort of scenarios, that's not necessarily going to be much of a problem. It's getting enough of them that's going to be more of a problem. So they're your main three items there. Now you could live on that. Pretty much you could survive just on those three items, but you're going to get a bit bored. So I'll go through a few other things. Anything tinned. Pretty much anything tinned. So tinned tomatoes is great because if you've got pasta, you've got a nice pasta sauce that you can make. Obviously you can add spices to that if you want to, various different things. Tinned vegetables, kind of guess that's with the beans there. Soups, pretty much anything. I've got more tomatoes. Pretty much anything that comes in a tin. Main things to remember with tins is when you buy them, make sure they're rust and dent free. So providing the environment that they're in is the tin is in good quality. The date that's on the soup here, it says 2026. You can forget that, providing this is kept in a good condition. And that's when these boxes come in, which I'll go into a little bit more into in a bit. But things like packet noodles, I have a little bit of a problem with these kind of things because they do go stale very close after the best before date. Bear in mind, all this stuff has a best before date, not a used by date. And the difference is, if you don't know, is a used by date is that's when that food item should be used by. You can use your own common sense a little bit, sniff test. If it smells okay, taste it. If it tastes okay, it's probably all right. Obviously, visual inspection first. If it looks mouldy, bin it. If it's then smell, taste. Most things will last a little bit longer than its date. There's a little bit of over caution. Milk, for instance, if it's not been opened, will generally go maybe a few days past. Sometimes you buy milk and it goes off 3 or 4, 5 days before the use by date. I think that's pretty much to do with the process of when it was pasteurised, if it was pasteurised correctly or not. Double filtered stuff like Cravendale supermarkets do, or some supermarkets do their own, that lasts a bit longer. You can freeze milk. Milk can be frozen. But then you can also get powdered milk, which is actually okay. I really don't mind the taste of it whatsoever. But yeah, there's ways that you can make stuff like this last a little bit longer. So, and then you just got like, say, rice noodles, which is obviously is made from rice. Well, the processed carbohydrate from the rice. So this is some of the stuff. Honey, I would definitely get a decent amount of sugar and salt. Those three items will last indefinitely. You don't have to worry about them going off. Sugar, you might want to decant into Kilner jars. If you don't know, that's a Kilner jar. You can get bigger ones than that. And same with salt, just to keep the moisture out of it, because it'll absorb moisture. Yeah, honey is in a jar. Honey's antibacterial. It's got several uses. There's enzymes in there that are brilliant for your stomach. Let's say it's antibacterial. If you suffer with burns or a cut, you can put it on gauze on a wound dressing and put that onto the skin or directly onto the wound, and it will help heal, stop it getting infected. Honey is a fantastic thing. Other things to think about are off-the-shelf painkillers. You can get these really cheap. You get them for pence. Paracetamol, ibuprofen. I recently had I've had a little bit of a bad run of bad luck through February. So I had flu, then I had to have a tooth taken out because I cracked my tooth, and then it got infected. I ended up having to be on antibiotics, which I'd actually got some antibiotics in stock, which was handy. And then I had a really bad cold. Probably all the three was sort of linked because I was run down. But the amount, these aren't great for your liver, by the way, if you're taking them over long periods of time. They're not great for your stomach. They will cause stomach ulcers. So always make sure you eat before you take ibuprofen. Doesn't have to be much, just something to line your stomach. But I went through, just with those three things, I went through loads of these. Absolutely loads. So bear in mind of how much you possibly will need, but also bear in mind the use by dates on these. Really, you want to abide by them because of the chemical compositions in them. Over time, some medications can change a bit, and they either don't have the desired effects or they have slightly different effects, which can be a bit trippy depending on the painkiller. So you've got all your stuff, you've got your box, you've sealed that up. You can get Mylar bags as well for other, say, loose dried items. Dried beans are brilliant. If you want to put them into larger containers rather than having them in the small bags that they come in, or if you've got big things like lentils are great as well. They all store very well. But you can make things last longer by using a combination of these. This isn't enough for this box, by the way, but silica bags that draw in moisture. So you can chuck these in a Kilner jar that will absorb any moisture that's got in there. And these little babies, oxygen absorbers, definitely you want to be putting them in Kilner jars with your dry goods. The combination of oxygen and moisture, that's what causes decay. So with these two items, you can pretty much pause that, and the shelf life of items will last on loads longer. I would definitely you can get big ones of these. You can get ones that are kind of like about that big. If I'd fill this box here with food items, and then before I put the lid on, I'd probably dump in maybe one or two of those in there. Maybe the oxygen absorbers, a few of those. In an ideal situation, what you want to do is when you pack this and you seal it, you want to do it where the relative humidity is at the absolute lowest. Now, you could do this in a room if you've got a dehumidifier. You can run a dehumidifier maybe for a few hours in there, get the moisture content as low as possible, and whack a couple of them in, put the lid on, you're done. You could do that in if you're filling several of these boxes, and then store it in a cool, dark place. Ideal basement. When it's in these type of boxes, providing the box doesn't get broken, it doesn't matter if it's a damp environment, because these are now environmentally controlled, sealed units. Yeah. Other things you've got to think about is water. Now, the average person needs roughly between 1.5 to 2 litres per day, just to function. As you just breathe in, you lose about 300 to 400 millilitres depending on the air temperature and the humidity. So if it's a really dry environment, so if it's quite arid, desert, or extremely cold, as you breathe in, your body has to humidify that air before, because when it goes into the lungs, it has to be humid in order for the gases to transfer carbon dioxide or carbon monoxide, whatever, out and oxygen in. It's the same as gills, or how frogs breathe through their skin. It relies on moisture. So that's one thing to consider when you're losing water. Storing water. Let's go to two extremes. So if I'm just referring to my notes here. So for 2 people, for 14 days, 2 weeks, you're going to need a minimum of about 42 litres of water, which is quite doable. You could store water in several places around your home if you need be. Obviously, if you've got a bathtub, excuse me, that is, you can store, I think it's about, is it 300? I'm trying to think, it's 300 pints. Yeah, I think it's 300 pints you can fit in a bathtub. So it's about 150, no, it's got to be 300, sorry, it'd be 300 litres. Yeah, about 300 litres. So, you can store a decent amount in there, but if it's going to be sat there for a while, dust is going to settle in it, you're going to need to be able to filter it. Those soy water filters, I need to buy a new one, because it's not that I've overused it, because I think they're good for, it's either they're ridiculous, providing you look after them and you backflush them. I think it's 100,000. I'm sure it's 100,000 gallons that you can filter. Use them for filters, and they filter down to 0.1 of a micron. So there you get all your parasites like protozoa, cryptosporidia, those sorts of things. They filter out all that. They're great if you've got a water source nearby, like you say, if you've got a pond, a stream, a well, for instance. Great, you can get water into a container, siphon it through that through the filter into another container that's clean, and then you've got a nice constant water supply. You don't particularly have to worry too much about your water supply. If you're in a situation where water is limited and you can't go out, let's say you're in a survival bunker that you've purchased or built or whatever, you need to be able to recycle water. Now, there's 2 ways you can do that, and I'm talking about wastewater, your urine. Don't drink urine as it is. Do not drink urine as it is under any circumstances. There's some idiots out there that say, oh, you can drink so much. No, don't. You're going to be intaking the salts that you're expelling back in. You're actually going to dehydrate yourself faster, and the urea is going to cause problems up here. So just don't do it. What you can do is you can distill it if you've got that capability. that will separate the H2O and the salts in the urea. You could use the urea later on as a fertilizer if you really needed to. So that's one way. So you just take that back in. You can then also use the reverse osmosis filter. There's various different forms. You can get the small little kind of hand pump ones. They do require quite a bit of pressure. You can get them. I believe you can get them from oceanic shops, so boating places that sell, seagoing survival kits. Marine stores. That's the word I'm looking for. So that's two options that you've got for recycling water. Incidentally, that's what they do on the International Space Station. They don't carry loads of water up and back and forth. They recycle it. They also basically have a dehumidifier. That is another thing. If you've got a dehumidifier and you've got access to power, you can use a dehumidifier, providing you filter the water. I'd probably want to boil it to kind of give it a little bit of body, because if you've ever drunk distilled water, it kind of tastes flat and there's nothing to it. There's very little to it. You could add electrolytes as well, make an electrolyte drink to give it some of the minerals that's in there, because it's not going to contain any minerals. It's just going to be H2O. But yeah, you want to filter it to get any dust particles out there, and you might want to just give it a little boil anyway, just because some water where it sits, it's going to sit there all the time. You know, there's potential for Legionnaires, but that's another option for getting water. The other thing is, like, how much do you stock up? Well, you're going to be limited. I suppose you're limited to the amount of space that you've got. I'm quite blessed in that I've got a reasonable amount of space, although I probably haven't got as much space as I need in some respects. I could fill this basement. I could put a couple of rows of like shelving down here in the next room. I could probably, if I'm careful of what I bought, I could probably get a few years' supplies worth down here. But if you're living in a small flat and you haven't got a huge amount of storage, then you're going to be limited. So choose carefully what you buy. Get stuff that's got all the essentials that you need. You could also supplement with multivitamins tablets that you can purchase. Again, they will only last so long. They will degrade over time, and you will lose the vitamins. You could, if you've got access to power, you could grow. You could do small scale hydroponics. I could do that down here. That wouldn't be too much of a problem. But yeah, I'll go more into that when I do the ideal bunker setup and the pros and cons of having a bunker. Basically, is it worth the money of buying a bunker, building a bunker? Things to think about, the realities of it. So that will be in another episode. Right. I don't want to make this too long. If you've got any questions, put them in the comments. I will do my best to answer them. If you've got any recommendations for other people as well, chuck them in there. You know, I'm here to help as much as I can. If there are other people out there that have got recommendations that you want to help, like the community, put them in the comments box below. If you think I'm wrong on something, point me out. You know, we're all here to learn at the end of the day. I will check and Same with anything. Things need checking. Facts need to be verified. We can't just say things because we believe it's true. If we're saying something's true, there has to be actual evidence. We must remember this in life. Our opinions are our opinions. Facts are facts. Anyway, without further ado, I'm going to crack on, and I shall see you in the next video. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.